I am the Knight. I am Batman!
Hey everybody, Mac here. Welcome back to the show. I know that I said I was going to try and focus on like Masters of the Universe, the Mega Construct sets this month, but that was before Kevin Conroy passed away, and my world changed a little bit, and we'll get more into that at the end of this video. But as of the time of this recording, I'm recording this on Saturday, so it just happened yesterday, so it's still a little raw for me as I'm recording this. So keep that in mind while we go through this. But I have this. I have the Arkham City. I think it's Arkham City. Yeah, the Arkham City McFARLANE Wave with the Solomon Grundy Build-A-Figure. Mine came in, the complete set came in towards the end of October. Actually, I think it was like a couple days after Halloween. I was really hoping I was going to get this for Halloween, especially with Grundy being the Build-A-Figure. This would have been great for Bricktober, but that didn't happen. So now, I want to go over these now. Get these open, take a look at them, and just because of the things that have happened. And so we got Ra's al Ghul, we got Batman, we got Penguin, and we got Selina over here. And originally when I heard there was an Arkham City wave coming out, I wasn't really that thrilled about it, but then I saw the figures, and if we don't have strictly comic accurate versions of the villains, I'll take these ones any day, especially Penguin back there. I actually really like Penguin. I really like this version of Catwoman. Ra's is okay. I prefer an older looking with the robes and everything, sort of like what we had in the animated series, but it's still a cool figure. And I think I'm going to actually end up liking this Batman more than I thought I was going to. And I'm really looking forward to Grundy once we get all of the pieces together and put him together. So what we have with our packaging is our standard McFarlane fare. Big window, black banner across the bottom. This is a Build-A-Figure wave, so the boxes are a little bit bigger. We have the Build-A-Figure parts in there. We have the Together figure on the bottom. On the side, character's name, the wave that he's part of, Arkham City. We even have the Arkham City logo up here. On the back, we have the full run of the wave with Batman, Selina, Ra's, and Penguin, and then a picture of a completed Grundy, along with instructions on how to put Grundy together. On this side, more window, Bat logo, DC Multiverse. Up top, more window, Arkham City logo. So with that out of the way, let's just get away from the packaging, and let's get these open, and let's take a look at McFarlane Toys, DC Multiverse, Arkham City Wave. And we're going to start with Ra's al Ghul, because he's the one that interests me the least. And that's not to say that I think he's going to be a bad figure. He's just the one that, like I said in the intro, I prefer a different version of Ra's. So let's just take a look at him. And here we have Ra's al Ghul out of the box, and putting the tape measure to him, we can see that he is approximately 7.5 inches to the top of that big spiky head of hair. Now, bringing him up closer, the first thing I want to draw attention to is his face portrait. With, first of all, I think this is fantastic. McFarlane always does a really, really good job with the face portrait on his figures, and I think this looks really good. But this is also one of the big issues that I have, personal pet peeve, I shouldn't call it an issue, personal pet peeve that I have with the Arkham City version of Ra's, that he looks too young. And I know he's effectively immortal and the Lazarus pits regenerate him and blah, 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 blah. But I like it better, like I said, with the animated series type look where he has the robes and he looks older and wiser. And I don't know, there's just something about this. Like Ra's, I didn't imagine being a physical presence, more of just a thinker, a mastermind, a little bit diabolic. Loved how he refers to him as detective. This, to me, comes across as more of like a younger Ra's, other than the gray up here, where maybe he's just taking over the League of Assassins. Having said that, I think this looks fantastic, though, especially with his dragon tattoos on his arms. And it's been so long since I played Arkham City. I'm actually replaying Arkham Knight right now. I don't think I have Arkham City anymore. Anyway, it's been so long since I played Arkham City that I can't remember if this is exactly how he looked in the game. But I love how they even have the wolf up here, the wolf on his belt. The coloring is fantastic. I love this shade of green with the dark brown bracers and the boots, and even the work they did on the boots is fantastic with that stitching that starts at the toes and goes all the way up. Great detail on this, great look, great sculpt. Really gives Raish a really good look. And I'm actually kind of impressed that with this one, he didn't McFarlanize it like he does with a lot of stuff. Like there's not a whole lot of texturing going on here on the legs. I mean, there's a little bit on the inside of on the legs right here, but it's not nearly what he usually does. And that gives him a very, I don't know if elegant is the right word, but it's a very different stylistic choice from what he's done before. And I really appreciate that. And like I said, the green looks good, especially with the gold highlighting it, the brown for the leather, really like even like these gold buckles across his belt, the gold filigree up here on the shoulder pads. All of this looks good. You have your brown straps right here, giving this a armored type look where he has the shirt on underneath. And this is more of like a metal plate piece of armor that he would be wearing along the back as well. And then we have, like I said, his face portrait is fantastic. That you may have noticed that when I was doing the measurement and he was sitting far back, the eyes looked red, but that's because of my lights, the red background, and then reflecting off of the shadowing he gave the eyes when you get real up close and you can take a look at them. And that looks great. That looks really good. I'm really impressed with that. And as always, the paint apps, I really don't see any overspray, any paint fault on this at all. Really, I actually like this figure more than I thought I was going to. I still prefer the other version, like I keep saying, of Raish, but when I got this figure out of the box and I got my hands on it and I took a look at it, I actually like this a lot better than I thought I was going to. Now take a look at the articulation, that his head will do a full 360 spin. He has some decent amount of tilt to it. He doesn't really look up all that well. And as a matter of fact, if you try and pull his head back even more, it pops off where you can see that it's just a ball joint that comes down out of the noggin. Looks like it might be a double dumbbell joint, but that will just pop right back in. Can't really look down too well either. Arms will do a full 360, and this, stuck. And this is a very soft rubber, but it's also connected right there. So it does move out of the way a bit, but if you put the arms all the way up, they still have to kind of go out to the side right there. Now, it also does not get in the way whenever you bring the arms up, that he can go a little bit past 90. He has a butterfly joint in there as well. Bicep swivel that breaks up the tattoo, but it still looks so good. Double jointed elbows. Wrists swivel. Wrists pivot in and out. And then you can do this, and then the wrists will pivot up and down. Now, this is fairly hollow. This is sort of something like what they've done with their Witcher figures, that there is an ab crunch in there, but this is too heavy of rubber that it kind of fights it. So you can get that crunch forward, but then he'll start to come back up. And likewise, you can see he can get some crunch back, but the rubber will want to put it back into position. But yeah, you can see right there, even when it comes up, you can see the ball joint at the waist. That there is a ball joint at the waist that he can pitch forward. He can pitch back with no problem. Has some great twists side to side. As a matter of fact, he'll do a full 360. And he has some side to side tilt as well. Now, when we get down to the legs, there's nothing for that hidden thigh joint to get the legs to swivel. However, they will come up to there very well. Also, you can bring them up and really get them to crank out like that. So you can get some movement out of them. It's just not what we're used to. But the legs will come forward. Legs will go back. Double jointed knees. Now, there's no boot cut, but the ankle turns. Ankles rock back. Ankles rock way forward. Forward-facing pin for some rock, and we have our toe articulation. As with all McFarlane figures, Ra's al Ghul comes with a DC figure stand. He also comes with his collector's card where we have a great photo of the figure on the front, and then we have his bio on the back. Go ahead and pause and read now. And the only weapon we get is this sort of saber-like weapon we have going on right here. I like the hilt. I like the pommel right there. I think there's some really good work done on it. I think it looks good. I even like the hole that they have going through it right there. I don't think, other than maybe, is it a demon? Yeah, of course, it's a demon head. It's a demon's head right there, so why wouldn't it be? And I even like the etching that they have in the blade right there. I don't know if that's supposed to say anything. I'm not entirely sure. If anybody knows if that's a language and what it's supposed to say, please feel free to tell me. Or if I have it upside down and it's supposed to be like that. But I like the paint job that they did on the hilt. Oh, and this is where I have a little bit of overspray. You can see a little bit of the gold spraying onto the silver. This whole thing was probably just molded in silver, and then the hilt and the handle was spray painted, was painted gold. It is very bendable, but not nearly as much as some of the other McFarlane figures. And it fits very well into his hand that you just push it in to the open grip, turn, and he gets a really good grip on it. The only thing that I wish is that he came with two, because this definitely looks like he should be dual wielding these things. The collect-to-build pieces we get with Raish are Grundy's arms, and for the lack of texturing that Raish had, we definitely get that made up with Grundy right here, because you can take a look and see the roughness, the dryness of the skin, the stitching and the gangrene line going around the bicep right here. Actually, on both of them, you can see that. And look at the veins and the sinews just bulging out of there. I really like this. I can't wait to see what Grundy's going to look like put together. And the next one we're going to take a look at is Penguin. And one thing that I really like that the animated series did with Penguin is that instead of being an Arkham villain where he's just like has this obsession with penguins, he's a mob boss. I like that. I like that they did that with that character. I think it gave him a little bit more, and I'm actually really looking forward to the Penguin spin-off series from the Batman. I'm curious to see what they do with that. So without further ado, let's get this bird out of the box and take a look at him. All right, here he is, Oswald, out of the packaging. And one of the things that I liked that the Arkham games did was that they gave him that Cockney accent, or that London accent. And when I first heard that, I was like, why are they doing this? What are they doing? And then I think at one point in the game, I forget which one, it might have been Arkham City or was it Arkham Knight? I can't remember. That if you listen to some of his henchmen, they even talk about how the accent is just an affectation, that he just puts it on because he picked it up when he was studying in London, even though he's from Gotham. I always liked that. I thought that was an interesting little quirk for Penguin as well. So I really like how the character between the animated series and the Arkham games has sort of like blossomed into a more interesting character. And I really hope they bring some of that out in the series that's coming up. But now, to put the tape measure to him, we can see that he is 6.5 inches to the top of his top hat, which means he's going to be much shorter than the other figures of this line. Not only being much shorter than a lot of the DC Multiverse figures, is McFarlane finally understanding the subtleties of scale? Someone alert the elders. Now, going along with the fake accent that he has, I also like his garb right here. I like how they dressed him up in this overcoat with the fur, the top hat, that it really gives him this whole, he's trying to mimic the London Underground look and bringing that to Gotham, bringing that into the character, even down to the monocle. I really like all of that. Now, there's one thing, dear viewers, that I cannot for the life of me remember, and please, someone in the comments remind me, why does he have this voice box looking thing in his neck? I, for the life of me, cannot remember, and I didn't bother looking it up. So if anybody can let me know in the comments down below, I cannot remember what that is for. The face portrait of Penguin is kind of ugly, but I like that. It's supposed to be ugly. It's not supposed to be attractive. He's in that perpetual rah look, and I really dig that. His nose isn't as big as, or isn't as elongated as it is in the comics sometimes, or especially with the Burgess Meredith version, and I like that. That it still has it still is pointy. It's still a little pointier than you would expect it to be, but it's not that over-exaggerated beak that he normally has. I think the only version of Penguin that I liked better than this one and the animated series was Danny DeVito's, but that was something completely different. Okay, and we have the wraps on his hand over here. Pale skin, very, very pale skinned, which stands out even more against his dark garb right here. You have black with that green vest in there, then the gray undershirt, and then his slacks. And I love the spats. I love the grayed spats. I almost wish those would have been white instead of gray, but I think that's the color they were in the game, so we kind of had to stick with it. We did get some of that McFarlane texturing right here on the trench coat, but I think that's from the game too, if I remember right, that his trench coat had some texturing to it to make it look a little bit more than just like a flat, matted coat, basically. And we have the fur on the wrists right here as well. I kind of wish that the fur would have been a different color than this dark that kind of just blends in with the rest of the coat. Like maybe if they could have made it like a lighter black, maybe a gray or some other color. I don't know. It kind of blends in. And I feel like there's a lot of detail work done in here that could have come out if we would have colored it differently. All right. Look at the face, though. Look at those teeth. Look at just how angry he looks with the monocle in there. I really like this. I really like this. The top hat does not come off, but this is very soft right here so that it won't break. The top hat is a little hollow. And yeah, so let's take a look at the articulation that he can do a full 360. It's a little hard, though, because of this collar. He can look up, but his top hat hits the collar. He can really look down. And he has some really good tilt side to side. Now, the arms will do a full 360 spin. He has a butterfly joint in there. He has a bicep swivel, double jointed elbows. He has the swivel, wrists hinge in and out, and then you can do this and you can do that, and they'll hinge up and down. But as we see sometimes when we have figures with coats with or any type of sleeve like this, it is hampered a little bit because of the cuff right there. Pretty much nothing in the waist that, like, it feels like there's something in there. There's definitely something in there, but all of this rubber and all of this plastic, especially with the coat on, really interferes. But he does have the waist twist, and he has some rock side to side, and he can go at the waist as well, not just the ab. Like, it does feel like it's hollowed out, like the Witcher figures, like Roz that we just took a look at. But because of how heavy this coat is and how heavy all of this rubber is, it definitely interferes with his movement. We get down to the legs, and there's no thigh swivel, no calf swivel, hip swivel, whatever you want to call it in there. The coat, once again, interferes with the legs coming up that he can only really get to there. They'll come forward, not very far. As a matter of fact, that's it. And they'll go back only to about, wait, where's this leg? Where's the, okay. There's straight. There's back. It goes back to there. He has single jointed knees, which is fine because what's the double joint really going to do? But it's hinge and swivel at the knee right there. And then he has the ankles will rock back, but not much because they're getting caught on the pants. The ankles will rock forward, not much because they're getting caught on the pants. They have some ankle rock, and we have our toe articulation. So the articulation on the Penguin is not great. Let's just get that out of the way. It's not great, but it's the Penguin. Like, I don't mean to use that as an excuse, but truthfully, he's not going to be getting into any dynamic poses. Like, he's the Penguin. He's pretty much just going to stand there, point his umbrella at people, and rant, rant, rant as much as you want him to. I'm a little disappointed in the leg articulation. I feel like that could have been better, and with the ankle articulation as well. But one thing that I forgot to take a look at when we were looking at the sculpt was, once again, they did some really good job on the pant cuffs here, making it just drape over the front of the shoe and then hang low in the back. I think that looks really good, but this is definitely one of the McFarlane figures where form interferes with function, that for as good as it looks, and I do think it looks good, despite not having a lot of color, I do think it looks good. It looks very Penguin, but that does interfere with the articulation. Of course, we have our single peg figure stand, and we have our trading card right here that this is not a shot of the figure. I think this might actually be a digital render from the game. As a matter of fact, I went back and I took a look at the Ra's al Ghul card, and I thought that was a photo of the figure, but I think these are all stills from the game, or at least like promo shots from the game, Arkham City. And then on the back, we have his bio. And with this penguin, we get an umbrella, which originally I was going to get the movie Batman penguin as my penguin before I knew this one was coming out. But I didn't, because even though I liked the figure and I liked the representation of the character from the movie, it was like, if there's no umbrella, what's the point? And I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's the truth. But I really like this one. Mine's a little bent, but that can be taken care of. Apply some heat to it, remold it. But I really like the detail that they put into this. I really like how you have the texturing and the ribbing for the umbrella right here, the golden tip on it, and the penguin head on the handle of the umbrella. I think this looks really good. I think this is a really good accessory, and I feel like they kind of paid a little bit more attention to this than they needed to, as sort of like saying, sorry, we didn't have him with the other version. And it fits in his hand very well. That his hand is fairly soft, and you can just slip it in there, and then there you go. Penguin has his umbrella, and you have a complete look, because truthfully, if you can't have the umbrella with Penguin, what's the point? And the collectible build pieces that we get with Penguin is Grundy's vest, which we'll take a look at that once we put it on him, but we also have his head, and just look at that face, that madness in there, and that texturing face. This is going to look really cool. Oh, look at that. I can't wait to put this together. Up next is Catwoman, and I really like this Bomber Girl look that they came up with for the Arkham games, and I was really hoping this look was going to stick around longer. I think it was around for a little bit in the comics, but didn't really last, and I was really hoping that it would, because I really like this one. And as a matter of fact, I think in one of the animated movies, she has this look. And I think she has something like this in Injustice. I'm not entirely sure. I can't remember. I didn't play Injustice 2. But let's get this open, let's get her out, and let's take a look at her. And now here Selina is out of the box, and now that she's out of the box and I had a better look at her and I got my hands on the figure, I don't know. I guess this is kind of what her current costume is, her rebirth look. Except in the comics, obviously, she zips up all the way, and sometimes she has the goggles down, sometimes she has a mask on, and she has the clawed gloves. I don't know, for some reason when I first looked at her in the box, I didn't think this was her current look, but I guess more or less this is how she's looking right now. And putting the tape measure to her now, we can see that she is approximately 6 7/8 to the top of her head, roughly 7 inches to the top of her ears. Getting a closer look at her, I gotta say, I love the face portrait of this figure. This definitely looks like the video game brought to 3D life in plastic form. They did a beautiful job with the sculpt right here, and a beautiful job with the paint app, giving her the eyeshadow, giving her the lipstick, and giving her that tuft of hair coming out from underneath her skull cap. You get some reflection off of the red goggles up top. You even get some definition, some sculpting for the ears up there, and I really like the look of this popped collar coming up off of her leather cat suit. I like the silver for the zipper coming down the front, and her little choker collar right there with the silver, is that a bell on it? With a little charm hanging off of it. I really like that, and the silver for her knuckle dusters down here. You also get some McFARLANE texturing for this suit, but I don't think that was a trait of McFARLANE. I'm pretty sure that the costume looks like that in the game. Not really remembering it, because I know I said I'm playing Arkham Knights right now, but my version of Catwoman in Arkham Knight is actually wearing the Batman 66, the version of Catwoman, the Julie Newmar outfit. So I haven't really seen this one recently, but I really like the look of it. This is the only thing I have a problem with, that they gave her like these lace-up boots right here. They could have just given her some flat combat boots, and it actually would have looked great with this costume, with its design. And instead they gave her these big clunky heels. And one, don't do that. Like, that's kind of ridiculous. And two, it makes it harder for her to stand in figure form. But I really wish they would have just given her some flat combat boots. But other than that, I'm a big fan of this look. I think this looks great. This is one of my top 2, maybe 3 favorite looks for Catwoman. The other 2 being Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman from Batman Returns, and of course the Julie Newmar catsuit from Batman 66. But this is a great modern look for our heroine, anti-heroine, I guess. Now looking at the articulation, she gets some really good tilt side to side. She can do a full 360, and you saw that collar. It's a very soft rubber, so it gets out of the way. She can kind of look up. She can bury the chin and look down. Arms will do a full 360 spin. No butterfly joint in her, but her arms will come up. It's funny because the arm will come up to 90, but then there's like a natural bow to the arm right there. She has a bicep swivel, double jointed elbows, and she has swivel, hinge, and then you can do this and you can do that, and they can go in and out. Now, because the joint is so small and she has the cuffs right here, it interferes a little bit, but not too greatly. And I do like how she kind of has like that clawed cat scratch look with her left hand right here. Wish they would have put some claws on there. Right hand is a gripping hand for her whip, which we'll take a look at later. Now, coming up to the torso, we have an ab cut right in here that she can do a twist. She can really crank back, kind of crank forward, has some good side to side, but then that works in conjunction with the ball joint at her waist, where she can crank back and then really crank back. Really get some forward going on. Waist will do a full spin as well, and you get really good bit of rock side to side. Legs don't really have that hidden hip twist right there, which is, especially for her, very annoying. Leg will come up to 90. You do have that rubber crotch piece right here that will get up out of her way. Legs will go back. Legs will go back. Legs can come out to the side. Legs have some great articulation, and you can do that. Turn them and bring them all the way out to the side. Double jointed knees. No boot cut. Ankles rock. Ankles rock back. Ankles rock way forward. Forward facing pin for some rock. And a little bit of a toe articulation right there. Of course, Selina comes with her single peg DC figure stand. And she has her collector's card with a great render from what I believe is the game graphics, just like with the other two. And on the back right here, we have her bio. Go ahead and pause and read. And finally, the accessory that she comes with is her whip. And it's always difficult to get a whip in plastic form like this because you got two choices. Try and pre-mold it like this one, or just go with a loop or a loose string like the Beastman method. I don't know which one is better. I don't know if either one of them are better. I would prefer to have something like this, plastic, but with like a bendy wire in it. I think that would be really cool. Probably be a little bit more expensive. The other issue is that look at the size of this handle right here. And then you have her hand. And you can get it in her hand, but it just seems like it's really stretching. And she holds on to it just fine. But if you try and move it around, I don't know, it just looks like it's a little too big for her grip. Because like when you try and move it a little bit, or you try and get different poses out of it, it starts to want to fall out. So once you get it in there, it stays in there. But I don't know, it just seems a little too big for her grip. And the collect-to-build piece that Selina comes with is Grundy's torso, and just look at the detail. The veins, the sinews, the big stitched-on chest piece right here. You have some texturing on the back, cracked skin, dried skin. This is going to look really cool. This is going to look real cool. And last, but by no means least, that brings us to the Batman. And here he is, the Dark Knight detective, out of his box. And putting the tape measure to him, we can see that he is 7 1/8 to the top of his head, 7 1/2 inches to the top of his big bat ears. So before we get into anything else, let me just say, and I know that the fandom is kind of split on this, but I've never liked an armored Batman. I feel like Batman should wear the armor for, I don't want to say special occasions, but it shouldn't be the thing that he wears all the time. It should be the thing that when he puts the armor on, you know it's about to go down. So like when he wore it in The Dark Knight Returns, when he had to plug himself into a city to fight a not at his full potential Superman, then he would have needed the armor. When it was the Batman versus Predator crossover, and he needed the armor especially for the IR sensors so he could see where the Predator was at, yeah, he would use the armor then. But just using the armor in everyday crime fighting, I'm not a big fan of that. I get why in the Arkham games they did it, because it would almost be ridiculous that he wasn't decked out in all of this gear, and that was also the aesthetic of the Arkham games. But once again, playing Arkham Knight right now, replaying Arkham Knight right now, I totally have him in his like classic 70s gray, blue, yellow shield on the chest. So that's what my version of Batman is like. Now, having said that and taking a look at this one, I kind of dig the look of this more than I thought I was going to, because while it does have the armored gauntlets and the armored boots right here, it isn't as blatantly obvious an armor outfit as I was expecting. So you have the texturing in here and you can see like plate lines and everything, but on the shelf, he's just going to look like Batman. As a matter of fact, here we go. I have the Detective Comics 1000 Batman, and if they were on the shelf and they were standing next to each other, you really wouldn't be able to tell much of a difference other than the pose and the head, quite obviously. So I like the look of this more than I thought I was going to, and I kind of like how the cape swoops off to the side like that. So he has his utility belt here. He has, the knuckle dusters going on as well. I really like this. I think this is jumping the gun a bit, but I think this is going to be my new shelf Batman, replacing this one until that Hush Batman comes out. I think it's next year. So let's just get to the articulation, that he can do a full 360 spin with the head. He has some good tilt side to side. He can really look up. He can look down. The arms. The arms would be able to do a full 360, except this cape gets in the way. So they really will only come to there and go back about that far. But they have the butterfly joint in there. And also, despite the cape coming off the shoulders, the arms still can come up to 90 degrees. They have a bicep swivel. Single jointed elbows. And I get why, because of how chunky this gauntlet is. But, that still surprised me when I got them out of the box. So single-jointed elbows that don't even really come up to 90. He has wrist swivel, hinge in and out, and then you can turn them and hinge them up and down. Okay? Now, at the waist, he has that ab cut that he can do a full spin right there. It's a little bit of side to side. He can get some back. He can get a decent amount of forward. Then he has a ball joint at the waist, that the waist will let him do a full spin. Whoop. By using the two in tandem, he can really crank back. And by using the two in tandem, he can really crank forward. He also gets a decent amount of side-to-side tilt going on right there. Legs have a little bit of a twist in the hip right there, more than a lot of the other ones in the line do. Once again, he has that rubber crotch piece. The legs can come up to 90. Legs will go back fairly well, but you do start to get some gapping. Legs come up real well out to the side, and they can do that. Double jointed knees. Ankles rock back. Ankles rock forward. Forward facing pin for some rocker. And toe articulation. Now, one thing that I forgot to draw attention to is the gauntlets themselves. And I think the gauntlets, despite me not being a fan of an armored Batman, I think the gauntlets are pretty cool. And I can actually get behind him having some type of armored gauntlet, some sort of armored forearm, because he could obviously use that for defense. And we saw him do that both in Batman Begins and Batman 89, so I don't really have issue with that, but I think these look really good. The bat fins down here are a little flimsy. That you can see mine were bent from being in the box, but a little heat, a little effort, and you'll be able to mold those right back into position. Of course, Bruce comes with his DC figure stand. And here we have his collector's card with a picture of him. Once again, I believe that's graphic from the game. And on the back, we have his bio. Pause and read. Now, the accessory that he comes with is his grapple gun right here. And truthfully, until now, I didn't realize how much the Arkham grapple gun looks like it was based off of the Batman 89 grapple gun. I mean, especially with this rounded part right here, I feel like that's really a direct reference to, or homage, or whatever you want to call it, to the Batman 89 grapple gun. One thing that I don't like, though, you can see there's really no trigger to it right there. And it doesn't really, he doesn't really hold it properly. Like, you can't really get a comfortable looking grip out of him with it because of how the handle is, how it sits in his hand. You kind of have to tilt his hand forward a little bit. I don't know. I don't think it looks good. It's definitely, and we've seen a lot of grapple guns with the Batmans that have came out, and this is definitely not the best. I might give him a different one. I might even just give him a Batarang. I don't know. But yeah, this just doesn't seem to fit him very well. Now, before we get to Grundy, I want to do a size comparison just with these three, because up until recently, the Batman Detective Comics 1000 and the Superman Action Comics 1000 have been my shelf Batman and Superman. This one might be taking its place, and this one might fill that spot, like I said, until the Jim Lee Hush Batman comes out. You can see that they kind of all size up fairly well, but there's one thing I want to try. I want to do a head swap between these two, because I've always said that this one, my big issue with this, is that the head is too small, and I want to see how the Arkham head looks on the Detective Comics body. And there we go. What do you think? I think dimensions-wise, I think the head looks much better. The cowl is obviously a darker black than the black for the Detective Comics 1000 Batman. But I think this could work. I really do. I really think this could work. Let's bring him a little closer and take a look at him. And there we go. Yeah, like I said, the cowl is definitely a darker black. Like this has more blue in it than the Arkham head does. But what do you think of that? I think it looks pretty good. And this combination right here might be my shelf Batman until Hush shows up. I don't know. I kind of like the look of that. We'll have to wait and see. Let me know what you think. And Batman comes with the legs of Solomon Grundy, and as you can see, we got more of that gangrene look going on. We got more of that stitch work going on. We got more of that texturing. Oh, that looks great. We got more of that texturing for this dried up skin. So let's not talk about it anymore. Let's just get Grundy put together and take a look at him ourselves. Solomon Grundy, born on a Monday. Here he is, the big chunky boy himself. And putting the tape measure to him, we can see that he is 8 1/8 of an inch to the top of his scraggly hair right here. But he is also about 5 inches wide across the shoulders. So he's not the tallest collected-build figure that we've received from McFARLANE, but I definitely feel like he's one of the chunkier ones. First of all, this is the face of an absolute madman right here. Like, this is just the look of someone completely insane, and I love it. I love this Frankenstein look that they have going on with all of this stitch work. This dude is heavy, like physically heavy. The torn and tattered clothes. Here we have more stitch work going on down here. You got like dirt and discoloring and gnarliness in his bare toes right there. Not so much in his fingers, but you just have a lot of gruesome and grody detail going on. I wish they would have done something more with the face, like maybe put some stitches up in the face. Oh, I guess they kind of did. I didn't even notice that when I was looking at it before. You can sort of see some scarring on his face right there. Aged and dirtiness and texture to his clothing right here. This vest is actually heavier than what I was expecting. Like, it kind of gets in the way of the articulation, which we'll take a look at in a second. But then even on the back of his legs, you got his calves bulging out, and you have like stress marks where the stitching might start to be ripping along where the muscles are. This is great. This is gnarly. This is gruesome. This is fantastic. I really, really like this guy. And his articulation, like I said, the vest gets in the way. He can't do a full 360 spin because of the heavy collar of this vest. So he can look to the side. He can look to the side. Not a whole lot of tilt going on. Not a whole lot in the head. Can't really look up. Kind of barely looks down. The arms would be able to do a full 360, but the vest gets in the way. That, see, it just wants to pop out rather than try and fight the vest. There's no dumbbell joint in, or there's no butterfly joint in there, obviously. So the arms can come up to about there, and they can go back to there. Now, this one comes up to 90, but then this one comes up way past 90. And I kind of like that because this is kind of like his face palming hand. So we'll see once we start like trying to pose him up. Maybe he can really get some heroes grabbed by the face and lift it up right there. Single jointed elbow, hinge and swivel at the elbow. Wrists pivot. Wrists swivel. And they pivot in and out. It doesn't have the standard McFARLANE joint right there. I guess that's a Revoltech joint. But these just go in and out. Both of them do. Let's get his arms out of the way. That he has some really good movement at this ball joint right here. You can kind of lean back. You can really lean forward. Get some good side-to-side going right there. And you can do a full spin. There's some really good articulation at the waist, which surprised me for the size of this guy and for this vest. Now the legs come up to the side, but they also sort of, come up front, but they also sort of come out to the side. This is that rubber piece right in there, so it does get up out of the way. Legs go back. Legs can come out real well. There's a surprise. And they can do that. He does have best range of movement out of the entire line. Single jointed knees that are not hinge and swivel, just a single jointed knee. Ankles rock way back. Whoop. Ankles rock way forward. There is some side to side rocker for the ankle. And he has his toe articulation. Now Grundy has no accessories with him. He didn't get anything, but for this big beefy boy, he is the weapon. I don't think you need anything for Grundy right here. So when I do a full wave like this, I really don't do size comparisons with other figures, but I do a size comparison across the line in general. And I do think there is some really good scaling going on. I like that Roz is a little bit taller. His eye line is a little bit higher than Bruce here. I like that Oswald is the shortest one. I like that Selina is a little bit shorter than Bruce, but like not how female characters are usually, like a full head, like down to the shoulders shorter. And I like that Grundy in the background there is taller than the rest of the wave, but he's not like towering over them. Like, I like Grundy's size back there compared to the rest of the line. I really was glad that he's not this like hulking figure. He's just really broad and really big. Now, something else I want to do for size comparison, and I don't have all of them, but let's see how this line stacks up next to some of the other Arkham figures. That we have Arkham Slade right here, Arkham Deathstroke. Get him standing there. Of course, we have the actual Arkham Knight himself, but mine has incredibly weak ankles, so kind of got to lean him against Roz right there a little bit. Hopefully they'll be able to stay up. And he's not technically an Arkham figure, but he is in Gotham Knights. There's Red Hood back there, just to get... He's a little bit back further. He's about the same size as Slade. So, basically, I think the only Arkham figure that I don't have is Joker. And that was because I never really cared for that version of Joker. And now, though, that I have all of this, I feel like I have to get that version of Joker. When celebrities pass away, people in the public eye, people that I've watched on TV, in movies, listen to their music, when they pass away, I mourn. I wouldn't say I grieve, but I mourn. I mourned when David Bowie passed away. I mourned when Prince passed away. I mourned when Betty White passed away. But I wouldn't really say I grieved, because I didn't know them. I knew them on TV. I knew them to listen to their music. But I had no actual connection to them. There have been a few in the years, don't get me wrong, that have impacted me. Their loss has impacted me. When I was a kid, the first one was Jim Henson. And then there was Mr. Rogers. And then the last one was actually Robin Williams. When I found out that Kevin Conroy had died on Friday, it hit me harder than I was expecting it to. And I've been trying to find the words to explain what his passing meant to me and what his life meant to me. As a matter of fact, this is probably the 5th or 6th time I've recorded this segment for the video, which is also why it's kind of late getting out. Batman the Animated Series came out at a very timely moment in my life, that it came out just as I was starting high school. And going up to high school, especially in the 90s, there was that feeling of we're leaving our childhood behind, we're becoming more mature, we're moving into the world of being adults. Young adults, but adults. That maybe some of the things that we took joy in, we pushed them aside because we thought they were quote-unquote kids stuff. Toys, comic books, action figures, and cartoons. Ironically enough, this is also when cartoons were sort of re-identifying themselves, that you had cartoons that could appeal to children as well as young adults. The Simpsons had been around for a long time at this point, and that was really the outlier. That was the exception. That wasn't the rule. Batman the Animated Series reached a lot of me and my friends because it was a cartoon, but it was also very mature. I don't want to say it was adult, but it was very mature. The stories, the scripts, the dialogue, it never talked down to us. It never assumed that we didn't know what was going on. It never assumed that just because it was a cartoon, it had to dumb down dialogue, it had to dumb down plot points. It treated us like we were adults, and I feel like that is one of the driving, at the time, that was one of the driving forces behind Batman the Animated Series. And in the middle of all of that, you have Kevin Conroy, who I honestly believe the show would not have succeeded. And I know others have said this up to this point, so this isn't anything wise or brave to say. But I do believe that if you didn't have Kevin Conroy at the middle of everything, holding everything together, being the heart, being the glue, being Batman, the show would not have been nearly the success that it was. It probably still would have been a success, but I question if it would have had the legs that it has now. I question if that voice actor, 30 years later, would still be voicing Batman. In the 30 years since Batman the Animated Series came on, something like 4 or 5 actors on the big screen have portrayed Batman. And that's one of the big differences. Actors played Batman. Kevin Conroy was Batman. He was everything that made that character great. He understood that character. I just recently found out that when he was offered the role of Batman and he was trying to wrap his head around it, around the dual identities of Bruce Wayne, of Batman, of revenge, of playing the hero that says this will never happen to another person again, that he based a lot of it off of Hamlet, which I find fantastic. And it also explains why so much was so dramatic in the performance, in the dialogue, in the delivery. There will never be another Kevin Conroy. There will never be... I really don't think there will ever be somebody that encapsulates this character. And I understand he's done so much more. He's had other great things. But there will never be somebody that can capture this character like Kevin did. He was Batman. He loved being Batman. He was everything that made this character great. This is the voice I hear every time I read a comic. And he impacted a lot of people my age, and probably a lot of people younger than me too, that found Batman the Animated Series later, played the Arkham games, have seen some of the animated movies. He was going to be Hordak coming up in the new He-Man and the Masters of the Universe CGI. I would have loved to have heard that. I would have loved to have seen him portray this absolutely evil character of Hordak. He got to be a live-action version of Bruce at one point during the Arrowverse Crisis on Infinite Earths. So yes, I grieve the passing of Kevin Conroy. I feel it. It actually impacted me. I know there are people out there who are feeling real grief, true grief right now. Friends, loved ones, people that were part of the Justice League with him. But I grew up listening to his voice. I grew up with him in my life, and it's just very difficult that he's gone now. I know a lot of fans are feeling it. I know a lot of us are coming together on Twitter, on Instagram, on social media, sharing stories, sharing photos. And one thing that people have always said, never meet your heroes. I guess because it could possibly go bad. Never meet your heroes. That is false information. I say if you have the opportunity, do it. Because Kevin Conroy is a hero of mine. And I've never met him. And now I never will. And I was really excited because he was supposed to be coming to Steel City Con next month. He was going to be there. He was going to be signing autographs. And I was very excited that I was finally going to get to meet him. I was going to take the McFARLANE 30th anniversary figure diorama that I still have boxed up, and I was going to get him to sign that, and I was going to shake his hand, and I was going to get to meet him. And now that will never happen. And I'm not saying this is about me. Don't get me wrong. That's not what this is about. But if you have the opportunity to meet your heroes, do it. Because at some point, that option will be taken away from you. I regret not getting to meet him, but I thank him for everything that he's done. I thank him for being part of my life. So thank you, Kevin, for everything you did. Thank you for 30 years. Thank you for the series, the games, the movies. Thank you for everything. And don't worry, we'll take care of Gotham for you.